Thanks for tuning in to this webcast with the amazing Dan Rees, Managing Director of the Health and Fitness Institute. Why did I get him on here? Well, this is a guy I have worked with for a long, long time in the industry. He's someone I trust implicitly. He has this great warmth for the industry, but he strives in the same way to set standards high. And I felt that I wanted to explore education, who you can trust, what are standards, and just give some clarity on the whole education piece. So, Dan, I've given you an amazing introduction there. I hope you're very happy. Welcome, and thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Teresa. Thanks for the invite. Quite a great introduction there. Let's hope I can do it some justice at least. And almost slightly emotional, that introduction. So we're off to a good start already.
Amazing. So, Dan, I've worked with you for a long, long time. And like I say, you are, in my opinion, you're a great spokesperson for our industry. And I've watched you in sort of like, you know, events and stuff. And you're often somebody who's not the first to speak their mind. You're often taking it all in, and then boom, you just sort of drop these bombs. Honestly, I've said this to your actual face. So yes, I'm hoping for some amazing bombs from you today, some knowledge bombs. So let's get to the first question, shall we?
Let's go. Let's go.
So, from my point of view, I want to know what's going on with the structure of the health and fitness sector. So, from an education perspective, who's who does what, and what do people need to know about our sector? And the reason I kind of want to qualify this question, because there are so many people working in the industry who don't fully understand it. It's complex. And if people are coming into the industry, where do they even start? So give us some perspective, please.
Yes, it's a great question. And unfortunately, you know, after a fair few years of working in this sector, I'm not sure that I know it all anymore, but it's a very difficult structure to understand. There's a lot of different bodies that all kind of feed into the mix. And if you're new to this sector and you're kind of looking, well, where do I even start? It's really, really complicated. And I actually feel sorry for people trying to get into the sector, because we don't make it easy for them at the end of the day. Where do we start with this? Let's start with Ofqual. Ofqual, if you like, are the government regulators for all qualifications across UK. And essentially they will ultimately regulate all of the qualifications that sit within our industry and other industries alike. And Ofqual directly work with organizations called awarding organizations. And the awarding organization is there to develop qualifications and standards to a certain degree, but they're there to develop the qualifications which essentially are a set of knowledge, skills, and behaviors. They will engage with employers, they'll engage with individuals, and they'll also engage with an organization called SimSpar, and we'll come back to SimSpar shortly. But awarding organizations are essentially there to set the standards and, if you like, build the qualifications. So within our sector, there are multiple awarding organizations, but examples such as Active IQ, YMCA Awards, Transcend Awards, Focus Awards, Innovate Awarding. So there are multiple awarding organizations, and I think the last time I checked, there was something like 182 awarding organizations, but we have what we call sector-specific awarding organizations. And generally people will say, you'll need a YMCA Awards qualification, or you'll need an Active IQ qualification, things like that. And essentially you can't go to those as a student and train to become a PT, because they're an awarding organization. And like I said, they're there to set the qualification outline, set the assessment specification, and making sure that people will attain a set level of standards. If we then go back to talk about SimSpar, Chartered Institute for the Management of Sport and Physical Activity. SimSpar have been around now for probably the last 10 years. And SimSpar's role is to set what they call, and we now know as, the professional standards. Used to be called National Occupational Standards. Now we know them as professional standards. And what SimSpar have done over the past few years is a really great job of working with employers to define what these professional standards look like. So they'll go out and they'll work with external stakeholders, such as employers, and say, right, if you want to be, or if you need a personal trainer in your facility, what knowledge, skills, and behaviors does that person, that individual need to be a personal trainer? And they build these professional standards around job roles. So if you want to be a personal trainer, here's a set of knowledge, skills, and behaviors that you need to become a PT. Now, the issue that you have here is that these are generic, they're not operator or employer specific. Okay, so there's a set of standards. There are professional standards, and then there's a set of professional standards for gym instructing, and so on and so forth across all the different job roles within the sector. And the awarding organizations will work with SimSPA to make sure the professional standards align with the qualifications that the awarding organizations are built. So not only is the qualification then regulated by Ofqual, but it also meets the SimSPA professional standards. So it's government recognized and industry recognized. That's how essentially qualifications are built. How they're delivered to the end user, which is the people obviously looking to either get into the sector or upskill themselves, you have to go out there and find a training provider.
Yeah.
Now, a training provider has to do, or should be doing, a number of things. One, they have to go and work with an awarding organization. Okay, so training providers will pick and choose which awarding organization they want to work with, and that may depend on the qualifications that are offered, or a variety of other reasons for which they will pick an awarding organization they want to work with. And then realistically, what they should be doing is going to SimSPA and registering as a SimSPA training provider partner. And essentially then the training provider will take the syllabus and the qualification from the awarding organization and build their own delivery methodology. And then they have to resource it with tutors, and then they have to have quality assurance staff to make sure that the quality of their provision is good, shall we say, at least. Yeah. And essentially then they'll market their product to the end user. So obviously then people wanting to get into the sector, if you go and find a training provider which is aligned with an awarding organization and a SimSPA training provider partner, that the qualification that you're getting is a recognized government qualification and also a industry recognized qualification from SimSPA. If you're looking to get into the sector, obviously, it's about, realistically, if you're wanting to get as a PT, it has to be a level 3 personal training qualification, but there are different entry routes in order to be able to get you to that. And what you have to do, and the standards are looking to change over time, you have to go through your level 2 gym instructor route to become a level 3 PT. But it depends where your end goal is, realistically, in terms of your motivation, your reasons of why you're looking to get into the sector, and ultimately, where do you want to end up? Do you want to be self-employed, employed? Who do you want to go and work for? The type of people that you want to be working with, realistically. But yeah, it's a very structured educational framework, and the majority of qualifications are portable. So SimSPA and the awarding organizations, in the main, their qualifications will be portable globally. So through relationships with the European Register of Exercise Professionals and the International Confederation of Register of Exercise Professionals, the majority of UK qualifications, if they fit the brackets, will be portable, certainly through Europe and largely globally as well. So, the educational framework within the UK was kind of like held up as, if you like, the model of good practice, and that's what then went on to form obviously the qualification framework throughout Europe, and then so far and further afield into other territories. So it's not easy, and it constantly changes. And but in the main, like I said, awarding organization, SimSPA recognized, are two things that you should be looking for straight away.
Amazing. You summed that up brilliantly. That was concise, because I know it's complex, but you've summed that up beautifully. So thank you so much. And I think what we'll do through this webcast is we're going to dig into, how can you trust supervision? What is what should you be looking for? Because of course, your placement or where you see yourself in the industry, you might recognize your route in is going to be different. Maybe you need more mentoring and stuff. So, I think what's really important is through this webcast, we dig even deeper. But I guess, my next question has to be, if we've looked at how this is all structured, that looked like a dance, didn't it? Let's be honest. There's me raving, clearly. I want to sort of explore the types of employment that are available to people coming into the sector, or indeed have been in the sector for a long time and, maybe are wanting to explore some different options.
For sure. And I will keep referring back to becoming a PT, and I don't necessarily mean to do that. There are all other opportunities within our sector, but just as a a point of reference, because that's if you like the most popular choice of why people want to get into this sector. A PT or a wellness coach. I know there are other options, group X coach. Then we enter a whole different field, if you like, of what's available to you. But let's go back and let's look at a PT, because in reality, the role of a gym instructor or a fitness instructor in the main doesn't exist anymore. Okay, so there's very few operators that actually have that role anymore. And is that a bad thing? We could argue all day long and say it's a bad thing, because actually, if you started as a gym instructor, you probably get a bit of a grounding, and it's almost like an apprenticeship, right? And then you would progress on. That's how I certainly started in this sector. I was a gym instructor, and I cleaned toilets, and I cleaned showers, and I cleaned changing rooms, and I think that's pretty much where a lot of people started. And then eventually, once you'd really understood how you can work with individuals and talk to them, the progression route was, well, actually the progression route back then wasn't to become a PT. I think it was to become an advanced fitness instructor, and then eventually you went on and did other stuff. But no, I digress. So if you're coming into the sector these days, look, there's a couple of different models and you need to look out for, and you probably need to think about this in terms of your decision making of, where do I want to get to as a PT or as a fitness professional? And if you go and talk to different operators, you'll find that there's different models. So let's take number one, which is they'll employ you. So an employed model means you'll receive a salary, you'll go and work for your operator. And then it's a case of, how does the personal training piece work? Because actually some operators will find your clients for you, and they'll essentially do the recruitment of clients and pass you the clients to deliver the training and gain the results for your clients, which is a great model. And there's elements of commission that you will earn then based on client results. There's an employed model where you have to go out and find your own clients, and again, there's a commission, potentially a commission model in terms of the number of clients you recruit. And looking at those two models, it's then a case of, well, where does I want to be a personal trainer because I want to help people. I want to help people get fitter, get healthier, but actually if you go into an employed role where you're having to find your clients, there's an element of sales there and marketing that you absolutely need to be aware of, even if you're going into an employed model. And I suppose, one of these things that we may come back to and touch on is, I think a lot of people get into this sector because they like being in a gym or they like being in a fitness facility. But look, the reality of it is, if you're coming into this sector and you want to work in it, chances are you're either doing it as your main job or a side hustle, and it's all about paying your mortgage. And you've got to be thinking, about the business acumen and the things that wrap around that to make sure that you're comfortable with that bit. If you're not comfortable with going out there and marketing yourself or trying to find clients, probably not the right sector for you, realistically, because this is not just about training people and training them to get fitter. You've got to be able to go out there and talk to people and engage with people and actually, talk to them about how you can help them and essentially sell your services as a product. Yeah. So that's the employed model. And often people will, feel more comfortable with that because it's a guaranteed salary every month with the potential of earning a little bit of commission, depending on, the operator that you ultimately go and work for. Then there's a self-employed model, and these come in a variety of different shapes and sizes. Largely and likely what will happen is you'll receive some form of remuneration for the first 3 months that you'll go and work with people, or you'll go and work with that operator. And over that 3 months, really your main goal is to go out there and engage with the members, engage with the workforce, and promote yourself within that operator facility and start to build your client base. Because after 3 months, what will happen is your salary will either immediately stop or it will be tapered down. And the expectation is that you'll build your client base, so as your salary comes down, your client base goes up and you start to build yourself that revenue stream, if you like. Dependent on the operator, the employer, some may say you have to fix your cost as a PT. Some may say you can go out there and charge what you want to charge in terms of what you think you're worth in terms of your services and what you're going to offer to your client. So it's trying to explore that. And then you have to then start to really think about, okay, get back to it. What are my monthly outgoings? Where do I absolutely need to come in at from a monthly revenue perspective in order to be able to make sure that you're bringing in enough revenue from your clients to be able to, pay your way as an individual and, all of your personal outgoings, mortgage, dependents, whatever that may look like. So that's self-employed. The opportunity there is that you probably may be able to get a better salary or better earnings than an employed model, but obviously it comes with the potential that the onus is on you to go out there and find the clients. And then the third option really is going out there and setting up your own business. And I think probably in the last 5 or 6 years, this is really the largest type of person that we've been used to as education providers wanting to come into the sector. If I look back at, and I know it was slightly different with COVID, but if I look back and look at kind of full years worth of data in 21 and 22, and again, yes, we were in COVID and gyms were in lockdown, but the amount of people that were considering self-employed or own business careers and ventures was about 60% of the people that were booking courses. So it was outweighing anybody that either wanted an employed role or wanted to go and be self-employed in gyms. And with that, then becomes everything that you need to consider as a business owner. How are you going to talk to your clients? How are you going to represent your business? So then you get into the realms of you need a website. You need to get very good at social media. You need to get very good at marketing yourself. So it's the whole front end that's a whole different and bigger consideration if you're going down that route. But ultimately, as a business owner, you then have really, as far as anybody's concerned, an untapped earning potential. And that comes back to how good you are as a business person and how far do you want to push it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, when I got into the industry from a group exercise point of view, and I did it because I loved it. And business really wasn't at the front of my mind, but it soon had to become part of it, because you can't, can you sustain things? Yeah. And certainly as I've got older, I've realized business is an area that lots of people actually genuinely struggle on coming into the sector, because it often comes through passion and love and wishing to help people, but they almost neglect or feel that that's not going, that it's just people are just going to come to them. And we know quite a few people pop out of the industry because perhaps what they thought that how the job was going to look is very different to the reality. And I wanted to ask you, I introduced you as someone I can trust, right? And I wanted...
Are we going back on that statement now?
No. What I wanted to do is extend that out into the questions that we're doing. How can people trust what is on offer out there? Whether they're looking to come into the industry. You've mentioned things like SimSpa or Offqual. I mean, these names that perhaps they've not even known about. How can they trust the provision? And also people who are established in the industry. We know that there's been things out there that haven't necessarily had, how would we say, how do I say this correctly?
Ethical practice.
Ethical practice. Yes, thank you. That's a beautiful way. Thank you for helping me make that smoother. Yeah, how can we be sure we can trust what's on offer out there?
Yeah, and actually, you know, certainly, well, it's been there for a long time, but within the last 18 months to 2 years, and I'm not necessarily sure why we've seen this shift, but we've certainly noticed a number of organizations setting up that, and again, you know, I'm trying to think of the right way to say it, a number of organizations that have set up that probably haven't done it with, you know, the learners future success at heart, if you like. And really, you know, I think to begin with, because the only way that you'll find these organizations is online, likely. Yep. And it comes back to safe online purchasing, you know, practices realistically. And I think for me, you know, if you're going onto an education or a training provider's website, there's some real basics. Try and find a company number and go and check it out at Companies House. And as basic as that sounds, if they're not a registered company, then that would be red flag number one. That's not to say that, you know, they have to be a registered company, because they could be a sole trader, but you realistically go and check the organization out at Companies House and see if you can track it down to a location. Secondly, contact us. Have a look at their contact us page. And if the contact us is just a contact us form, and there's no physical address, there's no telephone number. So in other words, what you're doing is you're sending somebody your inquiry details without knowing who you're sending them to. You know, you don't know where they're based. You have no idea. Again, that for me would be red flag number two, because if anything goes wrong, actually, how do I get hold of these people? And if the only way that I can get hold of these people is through email or through a live chat function, then again, that would be a concern to me. So those for me are the two biggest things. You know, have they got a company number? Are they a registered company? And how do I get hold of them? Can I see a physical address on their website? Those, and that goes when I purchase, certainly online, that goes for anything that I'm purchasing anyway, right? If I don't understand where this business is based, then are they a proper registered business? Do I really want to be trusting them with my bank details? I think those are three things that absolutely anybody should be looking for from the outset. And then where do we go from there? Well, I'll tell you now, any education provider out there, or most education providers out there, will tell you that they're the best quality education provider within the country. All right. And it's a line that I've seen used time and time again. Everybody says they're the best because, you know, they think they're the best. And that's not to say they're not the best, but everybody will tell you the same thing. And this is where you really need to do some further digging into, you know, do I trust this organization? Does it feel right? From there, if we then go back to the awarding organizations that we talked about before, on the website somewhere, you should be able to find a place that tells you which awarding organizations they're working with. Now, that could be as simple as the logos of the awarding organization. What you want to try and do is dig further, and somewhere on either the assessment part of the course explanation, it should really be telling you what certificate you're going to get once you've completed your qualification, and it should list the awarding organization that you're working with. Now that's actually enforced by awarding organizations in terms of being clear with the students. What qualification are you going to get? Who's it awarded by? So you should be able to find that. And then what that enables you to do is actually ring that awarding organization or send them an email and say, look, I'm thinking about becoming a personal trainer, fitness professional. I've been on this website. It says that you're the awarding organization. I just wanted to check it out. And, you know, do you have any feedback? Do you have any intelligence about that awarding organization? Reach out and talk to them. At the end of the day, they're there to manage the assessment and, to a certain degree, the delivery and quality assure those aspects of each training provider that works with an awarding organization. So they will have an audit history for that training provider. And that for me is really paramount, because what you've got out there is you've got providers that say, we work with 5 or 6 different awarding organizations, or they'll just list them as names, when in reality, they probably don't. And I'd be wanting to actually find out the truth in terms of what certificate am I going to get and which awarding organization are you working with? And therefore, let me go and get some intelligence about your training provider. So that's another thing that you should be looking for. And then we get back to SimSpar again. So because trying to think how we can keep this relatively simple, because I'd said obviously awarding organizations will work with SimSpar and they'll work with Ofqual, you know, awarding organizations will produce a qualification which is against and mapped against the SimSpar professional standards. Okay, so actually the training provider can say the qualification that you'll get is SimSpar approved, but that doesn't mean that the training provider is SimSpar approved unless they've gone to SimSpar and registered as a training provider partner. Now, by going and registering as a training provider partner, what that means then is that the training provider comes under the audit requirements of SimSpar. So not only now is this training provider quality assured by the awarding organization, they're also quality assured by SimSpar. So what you're now getting is this training provider under a little bit more scrutiny, sorry, a lot more scrutiny, because it's kind of like, you know, double the amount. Mm-hmm. And, you know, the SimSpar quality assurance audit looks at all sorts of other things that the awarding organization quality assurance visit doesn't. So what you find is actually, you know, if the training provider has gone to the length of registering for both, or certainly registering for AO and then actually going to SimSpar, you end up with a more likely decision that the training provider that you want to pay your money to is a authentic training provider, because what we've seen in the past before is people will pay money to a training provider, and then in 3 or 4 weeks the training provider's gone. Yeah. And really, unless you've paid on a credit card, there's very little you can do. There's very little you can do. So what we want to try to avoid is, you know, I think we're all very passionate in this sector about wanting to take care of our individuals and making sure that, well, certainly I am, and our organization is. I don't want to speak for everybody else, but in the main, the messaging is we care about people. We want them to get a good return on their investment, right? Because at the end of the day, we need more fitness professionals in our sector. We need more PTs. We need more Group X people, because the sector is expanding. The sector is growing. You know, I think the latest data that came out from Leisure Database is that whilst the number of operators and the number of clubs might have shrunk ever so slightly, actually the membership is outstripping year on year. So we've got more members, we've got more people. And there's this big thing within the sector right now about, it's largely known as the pivot to health, and how can we support the NHS, you know, and how can we be lobbying the health sector to embrace our sector, you know, and the whole thing there is, do we continue to talk about we are the fitness sector, or do we say we are the health sector, or the health and fitness sector? And I know it's terminology and play on words, but that's only going to mean that there's more opportunities for people coming in the sector. So I think those are a few, we digressed a little bit there. I think those are a few things that you need to look for in terms of if you're going out there and you're looking to choose a training provider. Mm-hmm. There's a couple of other things in there. And it's one that you and I see all the time on forums, realistically. And a lot of the time people don't think about it when they're looking for their training provider. But I would be looking at the curriculum and saying, actually, how are you going to help me as somebody new coming into this sector prepare to be job ready, work ready, whatever that looks like? Because time and time again, we see the comment, I've got my piece of paper, I've passed my course, how do I go and find some clients?
Yes. What now?
And realistically, it's too late by then. It's too late, because you know, if your PT course has taken 12, 16, 20 weeks, within that time, you should have been trying to learn and understand all this as well. So I would be, you know, saying to the training providers that you're talking with, how are you going to prepare me for that next step? Because a piece of paper to say you're a PT is great, but unless you can turn that into how am I going to get a job, or how am I going to make money, it's almost worthless. And you've put a lot of time and effort into getting it, but if they've not prepared you for that next step, you're going to be in for not a rough ride, but it's going to extend that period of learning significantly longer. So I'd be asking for that as well.
Yeah, it gets you in the door, a certificate, but
Yeah.
the whole gym behind there and a whole career. And more importantly, there's a whole bunch of people that need to be looked after and embraced in a really, you know, significant way. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, this we know that, you know, you've spoken about this and stuff, and I've worked in quality assurance, and I know it's something that's very important to you, that you're making sure you're empowering and facilitating your learners. I know this is, you know, tell me a little bit about the Health and Fitness Institute, why you feel that your model is maybe, you know, you said some people say they're the best training providers in the world, but talk to me specifically about, you know, what you've done in your model that maybe other providers could, you know, embrace. Yeah.
Without giving away too many trade secrets. No, for sure. Realistically, you know, my whole career has been based around actually how can we improve the quality of provision, okay? Because the end user should absolutely be getting the best quality service and education package that they can, okay? And to a certain degree, that's almost irrespective of how much you pay for your course. If you pay £1,000 for a PT course, or you pay £3,500 for a PT course, there's going to be different levels of quality, because at the end of the day, you know, it's to a certain degree, you know, the more you pay, the more service you're likely to get. And therefore you could say, you know, if you put two and two together, that you should get a better quality of service there because you're going to get more service and support. But that's not necessarily always the case. You know, you should still get a good level of service and good quality education, irrespective of how much you pay. If you pay somebody and you're literally left on your own to do it, then, you know, that's the worst experience you can get. And that's not good quality provision. And, you know, if I go back, we were one of the first providers back in the early 2000s to deliver, well, not the Health and Fitness Institute, but a previous organization. We were one of the first organizations to deliver blended learning. And back then, blended learning, you know, had a bit of a bad reputation because it came back to, well, you should be delivering it face to face. Well, actually, not everybody can afford or have the time or luxury to go and spend 3 months face to face, sitting in a bricks and mortar classroom, and study.
Yes.
And actually, what we've seen over the years is that type of provision has fallen away, because people are busy, people need to earn money, and people cannot generally afford to sit in a classroom for 3 months without any money coming through the door because they've got bills to pay. So the industry has had to adapt. And, you know, we've had to progress and we've had to take that forward. And the majority of providers now will deliver either blended learning or they'll deliver online learning. And again, it comes back to understanding what type of provision is better for you as an individual, and where's it going to, you know, sit within your life in terms of your ability to go and educate yourself, preparing for a new career or a side hustle, whilst being able to carry on with a main job, you know, and where are you at with that? Because I'm not going to say that blended learning is perfect for everybody. I'm not going to say online learning is perfect for everybody. But you still should be getting a good quality learning experience. You should still be learning. You should still be being prepared for the job that you're going to go and do. Where do we come into this? So there's been feedback, I suppose, from employers over the years that there's always been this disconnect between when somebody graduates and when somebody starts working. There's been this disconnect of, we need people to be able to better communicate with our members and customers. We need people to understand our customers and members better and the demographic that operator is working with as club. We need people to understand how to, and some of this stuff sounds really basic, but actually we need somebody to, you know, portray and amplify our values and culture as an individual. They need to be able to understand that, and they need to be able to amplify that if they're working in our facility. We need people who can go out there and talk to members and, you know, engage with them, because at the end of the day, a PT is a member retention tool as well. Let's not forget that. Okay, it is a member retention tool. We need people to be able to go out there and talk. You know, at the end of the day, we need to be able to, these trainers or these fitness professionals that are coming in our facility to deliver a great client experience. Okay, and that's a client experience irrespective of whether they're taking a training session or not. You know, every member should get the hello, goodbye, how you doing, you know, which, you know, is some places hard to come by.
Yes.
And then more importantly, if they are taking up personal training services, a great experience, and how to retain your clients as well. Because at the end of the day, it's about that retention piece. And let's be fair, the most successful personal trainers that I see out there right now, they're not just offering 1, 2, or 3 sessions a week as a PT. You almost become a lifestyle coach. You know, you're on hand for your clients 24 hours a day. You know, it's not just about what you do in the gym. It's about the nutritional advice that you're providing outside of that. It's how you communicate with your clients outside of that 1 hour, twice or 3 times a week that you're doing. You know, it's about trying to help your client, your trainee, become more resilient. You know, making sure that we're giving them advice around sleep, rest, recovery. It's not just about that 1 hour that I spend with them, and they're the most successful PT. And what we wanted to do was build a course that took all that feedback that employers and stakeholders we work with them, and you know, a lot of it was already known, but the ability when we set this new education provider up was we had a blank sheet of paper to work with, and what we wanted to do was something different. So we developed this 14-week program that you will learn alongside any entry-level qualification that you come into us with. So if you're coming from a point of not having any fitness qualifications, then we'll deliver this course that sits alongside the main course that you choose. And it is entirely designed at bridging that gap between when you get your piece of paper to actually being useful on the gym floor or useful in your own business. Because I'll come back and I'll say it again, a PT is not teaching somebody to do press-ups and sit-ups. It's much more than that. It's, you are a lifestyle coach, but let's come back to it again. You're doing it to pay your bills. So we wanted to make sure that we were doing everything that we could do to give our customers, our learners, the highest chance of success and being ready to hit the ground running as soon as they qualify. So that was one thing that we did. And then the second thing that we did was mentoring. And again, we see it on the forums. Oh, I'm struggling with this, I'm struggling with that. Can anybody give us any advice here? So we said, let's put a mentoring program together. There's people out there, you know, our graduates, when they come through us, they deserve better. So let's help and support them through the first 12 months of their journey into becoming a fitness professional. And you know, it could be all sorts. You know, the mentoring is very varied and it's very broad, but it's often, how do I get started? You know, so let's take you through the steps to build a website. Let's take you through the steps of the marketing aspect of things. Let's take everything that you've learned on program, and now we can help you turn it into something tangible and real. We've got partners that we can work with to get interview support. You know, we've got partners that we can help people get insurance with. We've got partners that we can get employment with. But what we wanted to do as a sign of a commitment to our learners was give them every bit of support that we could do through that first 12 months of graduating, getting their piece of paper, and help them become more successful. We wanted to, at the end of the day, we can't do it on our own, but we want to try and increase the average tenure that people are in this sector for, right? I've had a great career. And I've been it for a long time. But if you look at the average person that comes into this, it can often be seen as quite a transient workforce, quite a transient sector. But in reality, you're still paying a lot of money to get your qualification up front, right? So as a training provider, we wanted to make a commitment to our learners, that we're going to give them every or as much support as we possibly can, not only through their qualification, but all the way through their first 12 months in the sector. And without wanting to get onto the soapbox too much, there's a lot of companies out there that will offer you mentoring services. And unfortunately, when you are Googling or searching, whichever search engine you use, the minute that starts to flag up in your cache, internet cache, you go on YouTube, and all of a sudden you get all sorts of mentors, fitness mentors,
Promising the world.
Promising the world. Pay me £5,000, and in 12 weeks you'll be earning 5-figure sums. Right? Doesn't tell you where the decimal point is in those 5-figure sums. And let's be fair, right? Let's be fair. You know, if you're earning, there's very few personal trainers, if any, that I know are earning 15 grand a month. Okay. And if you're earning 15 grand a month as a PT, then your average earnings are over 100 grand a year. And I think if you look at the latest data, there's about 4% of the population earning more than 100 grand a year. So if these mentors are so sure, you know, I should be seeing that data point increase. Like I said, I don't want to get into that too much, but there are a lot of mentors out there that are literally sell. And then you have to wonder about where's the support coming from. And actually, you know, how many people, like I said, how many people earn every month 5 figures, with the decimal point being between the 5th and 6th, not the 3rd and 4th. But yeah, so we just wanted to make that difference. We really wanted to make a commitment to our learners, to really try to move the needle on education standards, the support that we give, which is outside of the qualification. You know, this is not part of the qualification. This is outside of that qual, to make sure that they're more ready and as ready as we can get people to be. And then that translates then into that mentoring program to give them that ongoing level of support, shoulder to cry on, somebody to bounce things off, you know. And we also signpost on that as well, in terms of if there are better people out there that they can go and talk to, we'll do that introduction.
I love that. And this is based upon a lot of experience in the industry, what you know are the gaps, and what you know, and the insights from what people feel that they've been missing. We see it, like you say, in the forums. How do I start being online? How do I get new clients? We see it all the time. So obviously the model of your company is hopefully plugging those gaps, and amazing. And so with the experience that's helped you build this model and where you are in the industry now, I'm going to ask you what your current view of the industry is.
In what respect?
Whatever you want to put it on. I guess, well, this chat is about trust, education, quality assurance, standards. You and I, you know how important standards and education is to me, and that you and I have worked in that place together, to make sure, you know, that we're championing that. So I just wanted to maybe get you to look at it from that perspective across the industry, your thoughts on standards and you know, over to you.
I think as a sector as a whole, we've made a massive step forwards. Okay, we've made a huge step forwards. I really do. And you know, that's not to say that we're there, but we've made a huge step forwards. I think the overall qualifications that are being developed and are certainly coming are significantly better than where we were. I think that the quality assurance systems and strategies that are in place now, some of those weren't in place 18 months, 2 years ago. So we've made a huge step forwards. Is there still room to grow and develop from a quality assurance perspective? Absolutely. But then you would never expect a sector to stand still. We've talked about it for the last 3 or 4 years. And in fact, we've talked about it for significantly longer than that. We all know the benefits of improving people's health and how the impact that can have on the health of the nation, the state of the nation, you know, improving people's physical activity, getting kids to play more, you know, getting them away from their tablets and their devices and actually, you know, making them do more physical activity. You know, the obesity agenda, our sector can do have so much impact, you know. And in order to have that impact, and in order to develop the trust of the health sector and government officials and ministers, and that whole infrastructure that we're really sat on the periphery of right now, to be able to say our sector can help, it really can help. But in order to get, or in order to continue to build that trust, because I was going to say get that trust, we're working in that direction. But in order to continue to build that trust, we need as a sector continue to professionalize. And, you know, that comes back to training providers. And I've said it before, and I've said it in multiple places, and, you know, often on LinkedIn. Poor quality provision is generally reflected by the leadership and management of organizations. You know, I don't need the police to tell me not to speed, right? I am a capable person who will get in a car and not speed, right? I do not need a regulatory organization to come and scrutinize my training provider to think I need to improve the quality of my provision, right? So a lot of people will blame the regulators and say, oh, the regulators need to do this, the regulators need to do that. And there's always room for improvement. There's always going to be room for improvement, let's be honest. But if you are passionate about the sector and want to improve the sector and want to improve the quality of people coming into it, and, you know, we need to continue to professionalize to gain the trust of organizations like the NHS and so on and so forth, you know, there needs to be a little bit of a step back and say, what am I in this sector for? Because you're in it for the wrong reasons, you know. But the problem is that's across all sectors, right? But it's about how do we improve that aspect of things, you know, and there's all sorts of things going on within the sector to try to do that. But I think we've moved significantly further forwards. I think one of the things that we're not too great at within our sector is professional development. I'm not too sure we're great at that. And you know, this comes back to individuals when they get into the sector. Some people think they know it all. Some people think they never have to go back and do any training. But again, I'll come back and I'll say the best personal trainers that I know never stop learning. They never stop learning, right? It's always about what can I do? It's not always about going on courses. It can be going observing people, shadowing people, reflective practice. It can be all of that around professional development. It doesn't necessarily mean I've got to go and sit in a course and do some courses to get some CPD points. It's about how can I develop myself as a professional. And I think that aspect of it has a long way to go, because, you know, if we look at the NHS and we look at health professionals, you know, they're constantly looking at continued professional development, right? And I think for the sector to continue that journey on being trusted and garnering that trust through health professionals, that's the bit that we also need to look at, is how do we encourage people to continuously develop themselves as professionals so that they can improve and expand their scope of practice, in order to help move this sector forwards. Because yes, this sector is about PT, and yes, it's about improving people's fitness, you know, and that aspect of it. But if we look at it much broader and we look at the impact that we could have, and we look at health, we're not talking about that incremental gain in fitness. We're talking about helping somebody maybe stand up and sit back down again, you know, walk 100 meters, whatever that could be. You know, on that health continuum, move them to the right, as Ollie Patrick says. You know, it's the small pieces that actually help people move or increase their health, and that comes through professional development, because a PT course gives you the basics to be a PT. It doesn't give you the knowledge to go out there and work with everybody and everything, you know. And we need to encourage people to move down that line of professional development, to increase their scope of practice, and essentially just become more professional, which reflects on the industry as a whole. You know, if we look at this as the overarching picture, that's what we want to try and do. We need a workforce that is more professional and more capable, and everybody is on that journey.
Love that. Love that. Bear in mind, I work in, you know, helping create education for FitPro. We, you know, ongoing education is a very important part of our provision. And one of the things I've been trying to do is to broaden what is available. I mean, we're nearly 100 CPD courses, ranging from an hour to 80 hours. I mean, it's really important that, you know, someone out there even knows how to have a conversation with somebody about this. Upskill, upskill, upskill. So I'm just, and the things that I'm working on at the moment in the background of, it's just more and more stuff there. It's great, because I remember, and I'm sure you remember, you know, at the beginning of my career, I was just plonked in with anybody, and there wasn't even any courses to support you on this or that. And, you know, that's a really important part, but sort of professionalizing ourselves. And, you know, it is very obvious, isn't it, when you get a learner who you think is going to want to continue to do that. They're the people who don't say, oh, I have to do homework, you know, which we've all had learners, you know, who think it is just the paper. But the true successful, and I know people, and you know people who are at the top of their game, and they're still popping into courses, not to see what they can, you know, get from it so that they can put the course on themselves, but just because they're just hungry to digest more and more. And that's an exciting part, I think, of being able to work with, you know, a bigger range of people.
100%. And if you think you know it all from day one, you're probably not going to last particularly long, realistically. You know, we have to look at this and say, you know, everybody's an individual. Everybody has their own individual needs and requirements, you know, and over time, you need to understand how to work with a broader range of people. Like I said, broaden your scope of practice to truly understand the broader impact we can have. And maybe that's not for every fitness professional when they come into the sector, right? Maybe it's not. And actually, you come into the sector because you want to work with that demographic, whatever that is, athletes, sports people, and that's great and that's fine, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But actually, you know, if we then want to broaden that out and we look at the larger objectives for the country, you know, let's be fair, obesity is going through the roof. In fact, actually, I was looking at a statistic this morning, and I can't even think why I was looking at this statistic. I think there was a social media clip around gyms in the 60s. And one of the comments was, look how far we've come. And then you look at obesity statistics from 1960s compared to where we were now. And it said 1% of men and 2% of women were obese in the 60s. And if we look at that statistic now, it was something like 25 point something percent of men and 27 point something percent of women are obese now. My comment back was, I think the only place we've gone is backwards, realistically, you know, and it's that population that we need to be reaching out to as an industry, and helping those people move forwards and actually get healthier, whatever that means. And that can only come with broadening scope of practice.
Absolutely. One of the things I'm really passionate about is trying to empower our fitness professionals to have this nuanced approach. So working within scope of practice, but, you know, if you've done a course and it's to help people who are going through cancer, you know, and then you do, I mean, I've done, you know, the level 4 on this, and back pain and obesity, and I've done all those, but it's now joining the dots. It's almost like, well, somebody who's got lower back pain hasn't got cancer, you know. And it's, for me, it's now, right, we don't just work with these individual people with just individual conditions, issues, or, you know, things. No. It's this nuanced, and for me, it's really empowering fitness professionals, absolute, to work within scope of practice, but to recognize that it's not just what it says in the textbook about that one.
100%. You know, and the population has moved on. What we would have called general populations back in day dot, you know, that's probably the special populations of today's society. General population is now special populations, you know. If you look at some of the markers, you know, we're probably dealing nowadays with a special population that we'd have called general population previously. But yeah, and again, that comes back to understanding your scope of practice and broadening that out, and making sure that you can, to your point there, join the dots and really understand how to be able to help these people moving forward.
Absolutely.
And I think if we can take that next step around, like I say, it comes back to professionalism. That for me really will help our sector move forwards and hopefully reduce this transient nature of workforce that we see, enabling people really understand where the opportunities are. Because we've just got so much untapped potential as a sector.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that. One thing I know we haven't spoken about, and we will wrap up shortly, is we haven't mentioned Ofsted and perhaps where it may be placed in our industry, because you and I know about Ofsted, right? But a lot of people, like, who in our industry is under that scrutiny?
So you only fall under the audit requirements of Ofsted if you're drawing down government funding. And there's various different types of government funding, but just as a high level overview, if you're delivering apprenticeships, your education provider will fall under the scope of Ofsted. If you're likely to be delivering 16 to 18-year-old funded programs that might take a year or 2 years, you will, fall under the scope of Ofsted. And if you're delivering or you're utilizing adult learner loan funding to fund courses, you will largely fall under the scope of Ofsted. Dependent on whether that education provider is what's known as a prime contract holder, so they're funded directly from the government, or if they're a subcontractor, so they're drawing funding down through the prime contract holder. If you're a prime contract holder, you'll get a full Ofsted inspection.
Yeah.
If you're a subcontractor, you'll get what's often referred to as a light touch inspection. And a light touch inspection is a significantly less stressful experience to go through. And a full Ofsted inspection is a massively stressful exercise to go through for all the staff that you've got working in that organization. And that can be, we always talk about you can be as best prepared as you want to be, and you can think you're the best education provider out there, and your self-assessment report and your quality improvement plan, are absolutely accurate for your business. It's still a massively stressful experience to go through. Been through numerous over the years, but within the sector right now, there's very few organizations that actually draw down government funding. And I could probably count on one hand the number of education providers that will fall under that Ofsted scope of inspection. And it can both be a good thing and a bad thing, because Ofsted inspections will be looking for significantly more than potentially you would expect by funding for yourself on a what we would class as a short course. So a short course that may last 16 to 20 weeks, as a fully fledged education skills funding agency delivery partner, you will be expected to do so much more than a short course provider. And that's absolutely right, because you're utilizing government funding, and then it starts to look at the broader scope of education. I think one of the things we can take from that Ofsted inspection is, though, and we need to look at how we can build that into the current arrangement for quality assurance, is how do we get a true picture and a true understanding of the quality of education through observing, teaching and learning. And that for me is really that next stage of it's there, but we need to understand how we can do that better. Okay. Because it's not an easy thing to go out there and look at and grade and make judgments of, but actually, that's where the heart of everything happens. Teachers teach, learners learn.
Yeah.
And how can we improve that, and how can we help education providers improve that? And that for me is key. That has to be, how can we bolster that aspect of current audit quality assurance arrangements to take that to the next step. But yeah, Ofsted is a whole different ball game. And like I said, there's not many education providers that would operate in our space, if you like, that would fall under the scope of Ofsted. And therefore, an education provider's statement around quality is often an internally judged statement.
There you go. Yes.
And and that's not to say it's a bad thing if they've got it right. If they are truly going through a correct self-assessment procedure and identifying an accurate quality improvement plan, then they should be able to make accurate descriptions of that. But often that's not the case.
No. The reason I wanted to just touch on that is because obviously I've been part of that process, and in a way I felt, even being part of it, that it would affect more people in our industry. And I think a lot of people think that every part of our industry is under the scrutiny of quality assurance and stuff like that. And so I thought it was a good way of sort of just putting that final piece of the jigsaw.
Yeah, many years ago, you used to be able to pay for one. You used to be able to pay to have not an OFSTED inspection, but you used to have, before OFSTED, you used to be able to pay to have that level of inspection. And often what it was seen as was, look, if I want to get into the world of government funding and actually drawing funding down from the government, it was often seen as the best practice route to get to that. You would pay to have a quality assurance visit of that level and scrutiny, to be able to demonstrate to the funding organizations that you were at that right level. And for me, that was great. It was great. Yes, it's not a nice exercise to go through. And, if you come out the other end of it and you've really not done as well as you think you should have done, or you were hoping for, it can be a demoralizing experience. Or you can look at it and go, we've got some really good information now in how to improve what we do. And that was back in when we had one, or when I had one back in 2005, it was a significant process to go through, but it was worth its weight in gold. And actually, when you've been through that, when you've been through the OFSTED scrutiny and inspection channel, it often then really and significantly helps your quality improvement strategy as an education provider, because it can be a stressful experience to go through. Let's just say that.
Exactly. Well, Dan, I hope this hasn't been a stressful experience to go through with me doing this webcast. We've covered loads, and I think some brilliant summaries and insights. I knew I would trust you to deliver on that. So thank you. I want to wrap it up and sort of give you an opportunity to, join any dots that you don't feel that we've covered. Any last thoughts?
And I know that we had this preamble beforehand, and I was thinking, okay, let me think about this through this. If I'm honest with you, I've just really enjoyed the conversation, T, and it's just been nice to talk about some of these points. And, I just come back and I will say, look, if you're thinking about getting into this sector, just do your due diligence of education providers. It's a great sector to get into. It can be complicated, but reach out to, like I said, the awarding organizations, reach out to SimSpa, get their impartial advice. It's a brilliant sector to be in. Think about all the opportunities that are out there and what's coming down the line. But yeah, please just do your due diligence in terms of which providers you're going out there to learn with, and make sure that you don't, fall into anything that financially may not be the best choice for you down the line. Outside of that, no, it's been really, really enjoyable. And thank you very much for inviting me onto this. Hopefully I've made sense and it's not just been a ramble.
Really have. You really have. I mean, I know how hard it is to talk about those things, but like I say, you've summarized it really, really well. So no, I massively appreciate it, because I couldn't have done it. So I needed you.
I'm sure you could.
Me just talking to myself anyway, asking myself questions and answering. So Dan, obviously managing director of the Health and Fitness Institute. Where can they follow you, and where can they learn more about the good work you guys are doing?
Our website address, www.thfi.com. Obviously, we've got a page, the Health and Fitness Institute, on Instagram. Our main company page is on LinkedIn. Please join our movement. We try to actively pushing out blog posts twice a week, just to try to, disseminate some free CPD that's out there. If you want to follow me personally on LinkedIn, that'd be great. And if you want any more information or just want a chat about anything, I always try and help people as much as we can. And you know that we bounce ideas off each other on personal training forums within Facebook, or albeit that's more of a personal thing than anything else. But yeah, that's where we can be found.
Amazing. Dan, thank you. Thank you for always just being someone that I admire the work that you do. I really do believe what you're doing for the whole industry is incredible. So I want to personally say thank you for somebody that I can look up to. Like I say, you and I always bounce ideas off each other and have a jolly good laugh as well. It's not just boring chats. So I wish you all the best and many, many thank yous. And I hope we can get you on again soon.
Well, hopefully it won't take us long next time to actually get this one up and running.
It took a while, didn't it? But that's okay. And we won't mention the technical.
No.
I can't even say the word.
Yeah, that one.
Problem. Anyway, let's sign off.
Yes.
And let's do a cheesy wave to the FitPro community.
Thank you so much, T. It's been an absolute honor and a pleasure to spend an hour with you on a Wednesday morning. So thanks for your time and thanks for me inviting on this. And it's been really interesting.
Amazing. Thank you, Dan.
Take care.